Great Demon King. Chapter 35. Prepare to fight. Shuo worked diligently by himself during the nights, leveraging his heightened senses to hunt down magical creatures lurking nearby. The flawless cooperation between him and his skeletal companion had proven effective, yielding 4 level 5 cores and several valuable skins and horns. Their combined efforts had not only provided sustenance, but also enriched their collection of magical resources, essential for their survival and advancement. Shuo didn't merely rely on his innate abilities. He actively cast spells whenever they encountered magical creatures. His repeated practice of bone arrow magic, often blending missile and melee attacks, resulted in uncanny effectiveness that set him apart from his peers. Unlike the other students who had displayed panic and disarray during their initial encounters, Shuo maintained a calm and composed demeanor, almost bordering on numb callousness. Even Shuo himself was perplexed by his lack of negative emotions throughout these intense encounters. Instead of fear or anxiety, he felt a bubbling eagerness and anticipation when tracking and combating magical creatures. It was as if he genuinely enjoyed the process, finding a strange satisfaction in the hunt and the subsequent victories. "I'm definitely not a good person," Shuo chuckled to himself, accepting the haul of cores and windblade wolf pelts from the little skeleton's hands. He patted the darkly gleaming head of the skeletal companion and smiled. "Let's go. We can head back now." The little skeleton's hand tightly clutched its bone dagger, its empty eye sockets devoid of any emotion as it trailed behind Shuo. The two of them swiftly retraced their steps along the original path, moving silently through the shadows of the towering trees. Halfway back to the camp, Shuo chanted an incantation, causing the little skeleton to vanish back into its other dimension. As he approached the camping area, he slowed his pace, moving unhurriedly through the dense foliage to avoid detection. It was past midnight, and the students standing guard in the camping area had shifted to Fanny, Lisa, and Amy. Lisa and Amy's eyes were half drooped, their bodies languid from exhaustion. Their lack of alertness contrasted sharply with Fanny's vigilant demeanor. Only Fanny seemed to understand the importance of maintaining their watch, her beautiful eyes constantly scanning the 4 corners of the darkened campsite. When Shuo's light footsteps grew nearer, her wary gaze immediately locked onto him. Her magic staff in hand, Fanny approached with a furrowed brow and an expression of high alert etched on her alluring features. She advanced slowly towards Shuo, her presence commanding and authoritative. "Who goes there?" she demanded softly, her voice steady but filled with caution. "Master Fanny, it's me," Shuo called out gently as he stepped out from the shadows, his movements deliberate and calm. "I knew it would be you," Fanny responded immediately, her eyes narrowing with a mix of confusion and concern. "I went to look for you earlier and discovered that your tent was empty. Where did you go in the middle of the night?" Her gaze scrutinized Shuo's body, searching for any signs of wrongdoing. "Nothing much. I only went to find a secluded corner to practice magic," Shuo replied, scratching his head as he maintained an honest and light-hearted expression. "After I asked you about the bone arrow magic last time, I've been taking advantage of the night to find a quiet area to practice. I think that only with repeated practice can I guarantee that I won't make a mistake." "Brian, it's great that you're so hardworking," Fanny acknowledged, her expression softening slightly as she regarded him. "After a while, when you've grasped more magic, I will explain this matter to the school authorities. That way, your status as an errand slave can be waived, and perhaps you will be able to enjoy the same treatment as the students." Shuo's thoughts raced as he processed her words. "Oh, I was sold to the Babylon Academy of Magic and Force. Will my status as an errand slave be waived purely because I understand magic?" he asked, trying to mask his astonishment with a hint of curiosity. Fanny nodded decisively, her eyes reflecting determination. "No mage has ever been an errand boy or slave. Being a mage is an esteemed profession throughout the profound continent. Even if our necromancy major is unpopular, if you can prove that you truly understand magic, then your status will change, and you'll never have to be the slave that runs errands." "I see, that's wonderful," Shuo replied, a spark of hope igniting in his heart. "I actually have a lot more questions that I hope Master Fanny will be able to answer for me. I will do my best to improve myself and become an adequate mage." His mind buzzed with the many unanswered questions from the magic books he had read, eager to seize this opportunity to gain deeper knowledge. "No problem. You can ask me any necromancy questions you have in the future. I will help you." Although you're a bit lascivious right now, I'm certain that you're a magical genius and will help you escape your current position," Fanny responded with a faint smile, her voice gentle but firm. Shuo returned her smile honestly, as if she hadn't just accused him of being too carnal. He pondered briefly before beginning to ask Fanny several questions regarding necromantic knowledge, seeking to make the most of this newfound rapport. After a brief moment of intense concentration, Fanny's face shifted from her composed demeanor to one of surprise and astonishment. "Oh, goodness, Brian. You already have so much magical knowledge. That's amazing," she exclaimed, clearly impressed by his responses. "I gained this magical knowledge from reading the magical books in the library last time I helped Jack clean the library. Ever since I discovered that I could cast the bone arrow magic, I started to investigate the reason why," Shuo lied smoothly, his voice carrying a slightly embarrassed tone. "Brian, I really wasn't wrong about you. You really are a magical genius," Fanny declared, her eyes wide with astonishment as she looked at him with newfound respect. At that moment, the sound of footsteps reached Shuo's ears again. His face grew grave as he hastily spoke. "A sound is approaching, but it doesn't sound like a magical creature. Rather, it sounds more like a human." Fanny's beautiful features changed slightly at Shuo's words, her posture tense as she pulled him closer in panic. They ran swiftly toward the tents. "There are many races within the dark forest, but not all of them are friendly. Even some who are humans like us will sometimes kill for a high-level magical creature core. We should be ready." Her slender fingers clutched Shuo's wrist tightly as they dashed through the darkened forest. Shuo couldn't help but feel a surge of sinister intention stirring within him as he recalled the tantalizing moment on the back of the battle steed a few days ago. The memory was both arousing and unsettling, and his mind raced with conflicted emotions. "Everyone up. Lisa and Amy. Get everyone up and ready for battle. Possible danger approaches." Fanny's urgent commands jolted the dozing Lisa and Amy awake. The two women, now alert and panicked, began raising a ruckus to warn the rest of the students. In the blink of an eye, many students who had been sound asleep in their tents sprang to their feet, their clothes disheveled and their faces masks of fear. They hurriedly prepared for battle, drawing their weapons and forming a defensive perimeter around the camp. Fanny glanced at Shuo in that chaotic moment, and noticed the strange, almost satisfied smile playing on his lips as he patted the little skeleton. Anger and frustration surged through her as she realized that Shuo's calmness and his unsettling smile hinted at something more sinister. Without warning, she let go of his wrist and gave him a sharp pinch with her jade hand. "Damn it, Brian. I find that you're as lecherous as Fitch," she hissed angrily, her voice low and filled with disdain. Shuo cried out in pain from the pinch, but maintained his awkward smile. Internally, he wondered what Fanny would think if she knew that he had touched her butt during their earlier encounter on the battle steed. His mind, however, had already begun to harden, replacing any lingering warmth with a deep, cold resolve. As the heavy footfalls grew louder, Shuo's demeanor shifted. His face, once displaying a mixture of frustration and eagerness, now held a cold, calculating expression. The earlier lustful gleam in his eyes faded, replaced by a steely determination. He watched as the sound of approaching footsteps drew nearer, his senses on high alert. Jean frowned thoughtfully as the footsteps continued to approach, his brow furrowing with concern. Such heavy footsteps shouldn't belong to humans, but two-legged magical creatures are exceedingly rare. What could they be? He pondered aloud, scanning the darkened path for any sign of movement. Fanny's beautiful eyes suddenly brightened with understanding. "Everyone, hurry and summon skeletal warriors to the front. We seem to have run into the man-eating monsters in the dark forest," she commanded urgently. The group was taken aback by her words. A few female students shuddered as fearful expressions blossomed on their faces. Even Jean looked astonished as he hurriedly instructed everyone to form a circular defense pattern, brandishing his brown magic staff with practiced wariness. Rounds of incantations echoed through the clearing as the students and teachers summoned their defensive forces. Skeletal warriors, ghouls, and zombie warriors materialized out of thin air, their ghostly forms coalescing with eerie precision. Fanny and Jean called forth their hate warriors, more advanced beings among the dark creatures. These hate warriors stood enormous and imposing, wielding heavy metal clubs and possessing incredible strength and durability. They were the necromancer's chosen meat shields, formidable protectors against the threats of the dark forest. Following the thudding footsteps, 8 gray-colored, 2 and 5-meter-tall man-eating monsters emerged from the shadows. These creatures wielded studded clubs and long spears, their eyes gleaming with predatory intent. The man-eating monsters, known for their pack mentality, were notorious for their ferocity and cunning. They weren't just brutish killers, they were strategic and relentless, making them some of the most feared inhabitants of the dark forest. Man-eating monsters were born robbers, driven by their insatiable hunger for human flesh. They thrived on chaos and fear, making every encounter with them a deadly affair. If they encountered humans during a robbery, they wouldn't hesitate to kill and consume them, driven by their dark instincts. As the man-eating monsters advanced, the group's defensive formations tightened. Skeletal warriors lunged forward, their bony limbs striking with unnatural speed, while ghouls and zombies moved with eerie coordination. Fanny stood at the forefront, her magic staff raised high as she prepared to defend her students and herself from the impending threat. "Prepare to fight," Fanny called out, her voice cutting through the tension like a blade. Her staff shimmered with necromantic energy, ready to unleash devastating spells upon the approaching monsters. The clash between the group and the man-eating monsters was imminent. Skeletal warriors engaged the monsters first, their ethereal forms clashing with the dark creature's brute strength. Bone arrows flew through the air, striking with precision, while melee attacks from both sides added to the chaos of battle. The man-eating monsters, though ferocious, were met with the organized and relentless defense of the necromancers and their summoned warriors. In the midst of the chaos, Shuo remained eerily calm. His earlier actions, and the subtle hints of his true power, had already set him apart from the rest. As the battle raged on, Shuo focused his energy, ready to unleash the full extent of his glacial mystical spellfire should the need arise. The night air was thick with the sounds of battle, clanging metal, piercing cries, and the unmistakable roar of magical energy. The moonlight filtered through the dense canopy, casting long, shifting shadows over the scene. The scent of burnt flesh and the tang of magical residue hung heavy in the air, a grim reminder of the stakes at hand. As the fight intensified, Fanny's strategic commands guided the group's movements. "Focus on their spear points. Disable their ranged attacks first," she instructed, her voice steady despite the mounting pressure. Jean, standing beside her, channeled powerful necromantic spells, his eyes fixed on the advancing monsters with unwavering focus. Shuo moved with calculated precision, his mind clear and focused. He could sense the ebb and flow of the battle, anticipating the movements of the man-eating monsters and adjusting his tactics accordingly. His calm demeanor allowed him to react swiftly and effectively, making him a valuable asset to the group. Despite their best efforts, the man-eating monsters were relentless, pushing back against the necromancer's defenses. The fight was far from over, and the group knew that their survival depended on their ability to work together and harness their magical strengths. As the battle reached its climax, Shuo felt a surge of dark energy within him, a powerful force ready to be unleashed. He took a deep breath, channeling his magical yuan and demonic power, preparing to cast a spell that could turn the tide of the battle. With a decisive motion, he unleashed the full might of his glacial mystical spellfire, the red and purple flames blazing with intense energy. The spell struck true, decimating the remaining man-eating monsters and securing the group's victory for the night. Breathing heavily, Fanny looked at Shuo with a newfound respect and a hint of awe. "Excellent work, Brian. Your magic saved us tonight." Shuo nodded modestly, the satisfaction of his hard-earned progress evident in his eyes. As the last of the man-eating monsters fell, the group allowed themselves a moment of respite, the tension gradually ebbing away as they regrouped and tended to their wounds. The night had been a testament to their resilience and the growing strength of their necromantic abilities. For Shuo, it was another step toward mastering his magic and redefining his role within the necromancy major. With each battle, he felt himself growing stronger, more attuned to the dark energies that flowed within him. As dawn approached, the group began to settle down once more, their spirits lifted by the hard-fought victory. Shuo reflected on the events of the night, his mind racing with thoughts of power, potential, and the ever-present desire to prove himself worthy of the respect he had so long been denied. "Prepare to fight," Fanny had called out, and in that moment, Shuo realized that he was no longer just an errand slave. He was a magical genius in his own right, capable of wielding dark and formidable magic to protect himself and his comrades. With renewed determination, Shuo looked forward to the challenges ahead, confident that his subconscious changes had unlocked a hidden potential that would guide him through the dangers of the dark forest and beyond.